So, last class we were discussing about IPC versus RPC, is not it? So, IPC stands for inter-process communication and RPC stands for remote procedure calling. So, basically IPC is used for allowing the communication among processes within a local system or local network, right. But RPC provides a more broader framework as compared to IPC. Whenever you want to call a remote procedure somewhere in WAN or internet or in a large class network, then we have to use RPC, right. So, RPC is a form of IPC, is not it? RPC, IPC. Though RPC covers a larger network and larger system, but it is a form of IPC, inter-process communication. Whenever two processes want to communicate each other, and if both the processes are the distance between two processes are very far and covering a lot of heterogeneity in terms of platform and architecture and network, right. Because whenever the message travels, it has to cross a number of different platforms, different architectures also sometimes and different networks. So, in those situations RPC is more useful than IPC. Okay. And as far as the inter-process communication is concerned, as I told you, there must be a send process which will be executed at the source side, and there is a receive procedure must be executed at the receiver side or the destination side, right. And after execution of this send procedure, one message will be generated, one result will be generated, and that result will be transferred to the receiver. And how it will be transferred? Via communication network. And to make the process transparent to the user, there must be a mechanism. Sometimes we have to use, so RPC is also a mechanism, to communicate. For communication, it is a mechanism. And what is the speciality about this mechanism? That user remains transparent from the underlying details. So, that is our major goal is to conceal, that is concealment of underlying details, like details about the message format, details about the network, details about the platform from users. Okay. So, concealment of underlying details from users, that is the greatest advantage of RPC, irrespective of different heterogeneous platform, irrespective of different heterogeneous platform. And what are the protocols? The standard protocols we can use are RR and RRA. That is, this is the sender, this is the receiver, this is the simplest protocol. Only one message will be transmitted. Source will send one request message and receiver will receive that. And there is no guarantee that the message is reaching to the destination or not. So, this is the most simplest and this is the most unreliable, is not it? It is the most simplest and most unreliable, because there is no guarantee whether the request message will reach to the destination or not. Second type is request reply, right. So, request message will be sent by the sender to the receiver and receiver will send a reply message, and this reply message, once it is reaching to the source is confirmed that the request message has reached. And there are three cases I think we have discussed, that the request message itself may be lost, or after receiving the request message the server procedure fails because of some computational problems on the receiver side, right. And third case is that request message could be received by the receiver, and receiver also could successfully execute the receive procedure, but while receiver sends the reply message to the source, the reply message lost on the way. That is the third case, right. And if this situation happens, that means the reply message could not be sent to source for all these three cases. Due to there can be any reason, one out of three, but the reply message could not be received by the sender. So, what you have to do? You have to send the same message again if the reply could not be sent. it may so happen that when you send the next time after some timeout, and this timeout estimation depends upon the diameter of the network. There are so many parameters associated with this timeout. After timeout, sender confirm that okay, the message could not be received by the receiver, so it will send the same message again. But if suppose the timeout estimation is not proper, what will happen? Receiver is going to receive the same message twice, sometimes thrice, 4 times. So, the receiver is going to receive a redundancy, that is redundant number of messages, duplication of the same messages because of the failures in the scenarios, right. So, if the same message is duplicated and received by the receiver, assume that the receiver buffer size, the memory size is not sufficient enough. What will happen? Some packets or some messages will be overflowed, right. So, if you have to design a protocol such that the receiver should be efficient, that means if you are receiving multiple copies for the same message at the receiver side, we can keep only once and all other copies should be ignored. How to do that? So, in those situations, receiver execute or invoke another procedure, another service or another process, so that the duplication can be minimized. I will just give a simple example. For example, a set containing only one element a set containing 4 elements, same value a, and here let us take S1 and this is S2. So, it is this S2 and S1, if you see, both are same according to our purpose, is not it. So, whenever you receive the same message again and again with multiple copies, you can ignore all 3, keeping only 1, any one out of these 4, you can keep only 1, and this type of operation is known as idempotent operation. And for this idempotent operation, the receiver has to execute an procedure, a service, so that any number of duplications, n minus 1 replicas out of n messages, similar kind of or same kind of messages should be ignored by these operations. Otherwise, what will happen? The memory size will be full and unnecessarily it will not allow to receive some new messages if their buffer size becomes full. These are the various issues should be taken into account while designing protocols for RPC, and they are standardized by some like answer test bench. They have given a proper standard how to represent the messages if a multiple copies are received by the receiver. It is okay. So, this situation may arise due to R, even if you are using R protocol, a number of same messages can be sent a number of times. So, wherever duplicacy is there, this operation can be useful, idempotent operation. Just I gave this example, but when you deal with a huge amount of messages, so these operations really improve the efficiency of the system. It will reduce the storage, at the same time it will reduce the time, delay in receiving the message. Am I clear? So, that means whenever these 3 protocols are designed with various call semantics that we shall discuss afterwards, that is called RPC call semantics. So, the protocol should be efficient and effective, and to make the protocol efficient and effective, the estimation of timeout is important. So, timeout is a function of network parameters, like what type of communication protocol you are using, communication system, and the execution time of the client in the source side and server in the server side, right. So, there are several parameters associated for estimating the timeout value, and that varies from protocol to protocol, that we shall discuss afterwards. But here what exactly I have to tell, that RPC is a mechanism by which it allows to transfer the data from a source to destination by calling a procedure remotely. Okay. So, how to achieve this? How to achieve this efficiency and the protocol in a very effective manner? So, in one side we have the client machine, so this is the working mechanism of RPC. As I told you, there must be a server procedure, client procedure should be executed at the client side, and there should be a server procedure executed at the server side. So, initially whenever you want a remote service, so in the client address space you have to call a remote procedure here, that is call. It is just similar to calling a procedure, and calling this is the calling procedure, this is the callee procedure on the server side, and there will be exchange of few arguments, parameters from that procedure. Suppose ABC is the procedure name and X, Y, Z, these are the parameters, and in the remote side there is a XYZ procedure and parameters are ABC likewise. So, this procedure will take this some of the parameters are input parameters and some of the parameters are output parameters. The way we are using two procedures in the same program, it is similar to the single program, but this server procedure is executed at the remote side, right. So, by using the call procedure we can call the remote procedure, and the arguments which are attached to this call procedures needs to be packed. What is the need of packing? Packing is also known as marshalling. As I told you, there are different platforms, different operating system, different architecture, different network, right. So, these arguments must be marshaled. Marshaled means converting the data structures, array, tree, graph, whatever you have used in your calling program or calling procedure should be converted to a form that is called external data representation, to a form which will be compatible across the entire system, across the network. That is the key point of the RPC mechanism, which was not much important in IPC. That means the arguments, the parameters, the data structures, whatever you use in a program must be converted to a form which should be suitable and compatible for the system. Or I can say that marshalling is a process of converting the data to a structured form, to a representation which is understood by different architectures and different operating systems, right. So, therefore, packing is required. So, whenever the programming is done using RPC, so the language supports some libraries. So, you need not be worried about how the packing takes place. Every language has its own libraries. So, by using those libraries we can marshal and or pack. Only the syntax will vary, but semantics is that some kind of marshalling is required to convert the data to a suitable form, from one form to another form, that is called packing or marshalling. And for packing we have different functions. I am not going to the syntax, I am going to only the semantics, that is what is the meaning of packing, what is the meaning of marshalling. And if you go to Java RPC, the syntax will vary. If you go for C++, the syntax will vary, but there will be a packing necessary for calling a procedure remotely. And what is the use of packing? Just to convert the parameters and data structures. Even the data structure itself can be a parameter in your procedure. The array can be a parameter or argument, right. So, after packing then it will be sent. While sending, again you have to invoke one more procedure, and the sending procedure knows what type of architecture it is going to send. So, the destination architecture, the communication medium, communication protocol, everything should be defined within this send procedure. Then only the transmission can be successful, right. And once the data is sent, again the reverse process will be followed at the server side. The communication network will receive the data which is given by the sender by executing a receive procedure. Then once it is received, it must be unpacked, because if you have declared an array at the client address space, here it should be array, otherwise the server cannot understand the data structure. But that array can be converted to a tree for suitability of the system, and the tree can be received by the receiver. the entire tree of data. At various nodes you can establish some data and that will be received by the receiver. Then receiver will unpack it by demarshalling. Am I clear? Then after demarshalling, again it will call the remote procedure, where the data of this the arguments called by the calling procedure will be exchanged with the arguments of the calling procedure. This is how the data is sent from client side to the server side. And once the server receives and executes the server procedure, it will return the result, that is return, and that result must be also packed. Otherwise, what will happen? There will be incompatibility, and after packing again it will be sent. You can see the send procedure is executed. Then again the communication network will be handled, will be accessed, and what all the protocol, the different types of protocols of the communication network will be defined in the send protocol, in send procedure. Otherwise, what will happen? There will be incompatibilities, right. So, then because of this receive procedure, it will receive the packed data or packed values, and this after the packed values must be again unpacked. It must get its original form, then it will be returned. The return result will be obtained at the client address space. So, these left side things must be defined and executed using client's address space, and this must be available at the server address space. Okay. So, this is the overall working mechanism of RPC. Now, we shall define how these things occurs in a step by step manner. That means, one algorithm runs at the client side and there is another algorithm runs at the server side to establish the communication mechanism, right. Algorithms or step by step procedure for RPC. So, step 1, so these 7 steps must be carried out to accomplish the RPC mechanism. What is the step number 1? A client invokes a client stop procedure at the client address space. So, here everything must run on client address space at the client side. What is the step 2? Marshalling is required, packing is required to convert to a suitable format for transmission, for onward transmission of the arguments or data. What is step 3? Client stop transfers the message to the transport layer. Again, just you draw a correspondence between the communication takes place between two nodes, two processes, and who are the layers from the communication network is responsible for which functionalities. So, at the bottommost we have the physical layer. Just recall, in some classes we have discussed about the OSI reference model, Open System Interconnection Model defined by ISO, International Standard Organization. So, we have physical layer, then we have data link layer, then we have network layer, then we have transport layer, and then we have the session layer, then we have the presentation layer, then we have the application layer. This is the 7 layer OSI model proposed long back to establish the communication, right. So, now we are dealing with the transport layer, and all these 3 layers will remain transparent to the user. Network layer function, data link layer function, physical layer functions, they will remain transparent to the user. User is not bothered about the protocols which are available under this. So, from transport layer onward till applications, these RPC mechanisms are implemented usually, right. So, that is in the step 3, client stop transfers the message to the transport layer. Where is the transport layer? So, transport layer is here. Now, we are accessing the network from the, we are viewing the network from the transport layer. Then in step 4, on the server side, transport layer passes the message to the server stop, because there is a client stop in the client side and there is a server stop in the server side. Then step 5, server procedure returns the results and marshals again. Then step 6, transport layer sends the result to the client's transport layer, which hands the message back to the client stop. For each of these, we have the appropriate libraries, right, in Java RMI or Java RPC or C++ RPC or MPI or PVM, parallel virtual machine. For all these frameworks, we have the appropriate libraries or runtime libraries. And finally, the clients of demarshal the return addresses and execution returns to the caller. That is, client again gets the result back from the server after execution. So, these 7 steps should be executed, and only you have to attach the appropriate syntax of the libraries to each and every steps. Is okay? So, this is the basics or the summary of the remote procedure calling. So, while designing the RPC protocol, what are the issues we should be dealt? That is, so these whenever the RPC mechanism is implemented, these issues must be dealt. Issues that must be addressed, the 3 issues. One is RPC runtime, second is RPC stop, and third is binding. What is RPC runtime? It is the, as I told you, there is a set of library routines available in the semantics. Whether it is C++, Java or any kind of language or platform, a set of libraries are provided and along with that a set of services that handles the network communication. Right? Why the network communication is necessary? Because we want to conceal the underlying details of the network communication from the user. Therefore, we have directly we should use the libraries for communication. Okay. So, this RPC runtime handles the binding and communication errors, if at all any errors are there in the underlying communication channel, and transfer of data. So, this is these are the functionalities of RPC runtime. Next is RPC stop. It provides transparency to the programmer. As I was telling about the SSI property, single system image property, that can be achieved using the RPC stop. That because of the marshalling and demarshalling, the user will not be able to know that I am dealing with array, or some kind of my data has been converted to a form which is suitable for the network. Again it is converted to array whenever it is received by the receiver. So, these are the transparencies are maintained using the RPC stop. So, these are also equally important. Then third issue is binding. What is the binding? We have to find out which service the client needs. So, identifying the service and where it is placed. So, both are important, name of the service and the location of the service. For example, I want to access a particular file from a remote site. So, I must know what file I have to access. By using the naming service, I can access that particular file, and where that file is located, that will be given by the location service. Therefore, binding service is divided into 2 services, name services, location service, and every service can be one or more than one processes, because in a distributed system everything are the set of processes, services, and these services must be managed and must be called as and when it is required. Am I clear? So, we shall discuss more detail about the naming service and the location service, but overall there are 3 issues must be dealt. One is RPC runtime, second is RPC stop, and RPC binding, right. And for each of these functionalities, we have the appropriate libraries or routines, and the routines which are defined by the language C++, Java or any language, they are fixed, and if you want also you can develop a service and define within that, just like header file. There are some header files are available in C or C++, but if you want to define a header file, it is possible. Similarly, if you want to define set of services, that can be separately developed and can be integrated into the distributed system. That is the advantage of the distributed system as compared to the computer network, right. So, because of this microkernel services, we will go to the microkernel and macrokernel services in the next class, but here this RPC issues must be dealt with various call semantics. So, now we shall see what are the different advantages of this RPC mechanism. So, advantages of RPC. Number 1, so these are the key advantages of the RPC mechanism. So, the first mechanism is very clear that RPC provides a number of libraries, so which gives an abstraction, so that the underlying details is concealed from the user to satisfy single system image property or to have a single coherent view. So, this provides some kind of abstraction by giving set of libraries, so that user is not bothered about the underlying details, underlying platforms, frameworks, operating systems, languages, right. So, that is a very big advantage of the RPC. So, irrespective of the type of machine or the location of the server, we can use the RPC for communication. Number 2 advantage, it often omits many network protocol layers from the user and programmer, because programmer need not know what kind of protocol is using for transmission of the data in the using the communication medium or using the computer network. That is second, because it is only bothered about the routines, which routine performs what function. Then third is usage of applications in a distributed environment instead of local environment, unlike IPC. IPC is used for transmission or communication within a local environment, but it gives a distributed environment with heterogeneous architectures, heterogeneous machines and heterogeneous communication protocols, right. So, third is also another advantage. Then fourth is rewriting and redeveloping the codes by the same programmer, it is the efforts are minimized, right. So, once you develop a code, as I told you, you can develop your own set of application services, and that can be a part of the distributed environment. Some of the services are available already, and you can develop your own services and can be integrated to the distributed system or distributed environment. Then it can, that is another important advantage, that it can lead to a process oriented as well as thread oriented models. A process can be divided into number of threads T1, T2, T3 and so on Tn. What is the advantage of thread communication model? If you want to parallelly transmit some data by using different threads for the same process, it is possible, right. So, there is a, we can use different ports, logical ports within the processes for communication, or you can use different threads for communication, and we shall see which operating system, which platform uses the processes for communication or ports for the communication or threads for the communication. Or there are three entities to establish the communication. One is can be done directly at the process level, or it can be done at the thread level, or we can have sufficient logical ports by using the naming service for communication, right. So, these are the various advantages of the RPC mechanism, and next class we shall see what are the RPC call semantics. Then we will go to the distributed operating system. What are the main features of the distributed operating system? And till the distributed operating system, I think it is the till this next class course for the mid semester till the distributed operating system. After this mostly the course will cover all the fundamentals whatever we have discussed about the computer network, because computer network is the backbone of a distributed system, and initially I discussed the various architectures and computing models for the distributed system, all those things, and now we are discussing IPC versus RPC. Next class hardly within 10 to 15 minutes we will be completing RPC, then we will go to the distributed operating system. Till this the course will appear in the mid semester. Is it okay? So, under the communication network, I think we have discussed various topologies also. So, you may get few questions from the topology also. Topology, and most of the questions will be based on the IPC and RPC, or you can say around 30% of the marks will be from IPC and RPC, and another 30% from computer network, and the remaining 40% about the different distributed computing models including distributed operating system.